This is Soleil. Welcome to the second ultrasound of Chronicles, Double Exposure. To a conversation with my best friend, LaShawn, a kindred of spirit and blood, through Joseph, my grandfather, born in 1919. Occasionally, a private conversation has a greater audience, which I recognize based on the substance and timing of LaShawn sharing her dream. So much so that we stopped before she could even finish it to wait until we could record it. The dream is about her mother, Mary Golden, who is connecting dots and illuminating blind spots about the project's themes and messages, including winter seasons, crystal singing bowls, and night blooms. Sometimes, as irritating teens, when she'd walk by and we were just bored, or we detected she was annoyed about something, or us, we'd start singing Run DMC's Mary, Mary, Why You Buggin'? I know, right? I know. But back then, it just seemed so funny. Nevertheless, she drove us to our first jobs at McDonald's, 3 miles in each direction, even when we had different schedules. And when I would call during college or life after, and even after she'd had a stroke and it was harder to speak, there was a vibrant smile in her voice for me. True treasure. And she's still gifting me now. With figurative and literal unexpected twist, the recent tornadoes in Alabama and Georgia began on the birth date of my first aunt that I mentioned in the Ultrasound for the What Season Is It piece. As a result, our recording plan got delayed. The next day, January 14th, Joseph's birthday, a major disaster was declared in California due to the flooding rains. My deepest empathy and sympathy to all impacted by these winter storms. I'm sending prayers of healing and restoration energy so that the light continues to more brightly shine through the darkness of loss and grief. And as we emerge from stormy weather, all who knew Mary Golden remember, honor, and celebrate her life and her spirit on her born day, January 19th. I hope after this you'll know her a little better and celebrate her life too. We recorded the dream conversation on Friday, December 30th, 2022. The dream and revelations occurred on Tuesday night into the next day. The 26th also happens to be Byron's birthday, the co-producer, and the first day that the California rain started that lasted for 3 weeks. Plus, a rare green comet was spotted on that day that hasn't been seen in 50,000 years. It's a lot of energy. And I get why I needed to re-record this ultrasound intro, because in the initial recording a couple of weeks ago, I didn't mention the rains, the comet, Byron's birthday, my aunt, or the tornadoes that damaged her home state, because some of those events hadn't occurred yet, or awareness of them hadn't occurred yet. So it continues the theme also of more ancestor states also corresponding with strong weather events. Whew, my life is real fractal, but it's quite marvelous. The May 6th date referred to in the conversation is in 2018 for context. And it's one of my uncle's birthdays, a son of Joseph. And the aunt that I just mentioned is a daughter of Joseph. During the April eclipse weekend 2022, per the Creator, I completed my first singing bowl training. And it was during that same time frame as receiving this double exposure collaboration inspiration. And there's more detailed background on that in the origin story video. Without further ado, the audio narration. Peace, peace.
The imagery shows an artistic version of an agonizing process of revelation, an illumination and liberation from generational bonds, trauma, and curses. The take up your cross and follow me as a living sacrifice process. The lose your life to find it process. The death to self and burial before the rebirth. Freedom from the colonial spirit constellated in the lineage. Freedom from the effects of the disobedience to the divine visited upon the descendants, the repairers of the breach. Picture the profile of a medium-toned black woman in a dark room. She's backlit, highlighting her hand and the white chiffon long sleeve. It's her long, dark winter season. The light shines through, illuminating her light brown forearm and hand with the close-up of a glass chain wrapped around her wrist, like a shackle. Her fingers move slowly. Light sparkles on the round ring. On her ring finger, a glass globe-shaped ring, symbolizing the divine seminal drop. The yod represents divine marriage and commitment to the walk. Fatigued, her hands comb through her curly brown hair. Close up again on her shackled wrists, hand, and the ring. Her fingers running through her hair again, longer. She gestures slowly with her hands. Another glass globe ring is revealed, one on each hand, symbolizing double exposures. The ring on her thumb represents power and liberation. She reaches both hands towards the sky. Close-up of the shackled wrists, hand and ring. Communicating fatigue. The scene goes back and forth for a minute until you see her holding the glass chain in her hand, placing it in the other one, freed from one. Fatigued. Her hands comb through her curly brown hair as her head falls back. The imagery of the cycle repeats as there's more yokes and chains. The yod ring, more powerful. She persists in the journey, with her arms gesturing in the flowing movements with the glass chain above her head after much sacrifice and obedient alignment. Now like a necklace in her hands rather than shackles and yokes. She persists through weary. Encouraged, she progresses slowly through delays and distress. Comforted, lonely, betrayed, isolated. Connected with the sisters born for adversity as others fall away. Languishing, encouraged, waiting, insight, encouragement. Carried and reassured, exhausted, inspired, victorious. Her arms gesturing in flowing movements like a dance with the glass chain above her head like a necklace and the double exposure of the yods. Night blooms.
Okay, so tell me now.
Okay. So what happened? In my dream, you were actually sitting at the table with my mom, and it looked like it kind of reminded me of the table, like they had the table in the little dining area, but it wasn't really that, like there was not much around the table. But it looked like that she was talking to you. And really it was more like encouragement talk. From what I was getting, I couldn't like hear the words. And then, because I wasn't there, but when I walked up, when I got closer, I realized that she wasn't talking like I thought she was talking. She had a singing bowl. And so that's what she was doing. And then after she would play, and then you kind of looked at each other like you knew what she was saying or whatever. And then she did that a couple of more times, and then she slid the singing bowl to you.
And when did you have this dream?
This was...
Because you told me about it yesterday. You said it was not the night before, but the night before that. So like that Tuesday
night.
Okay. Now, why that's obviously significant, but why it's even more so significant is because that morning, which is the Wednesday morning, early that morning, I was up. And before dawn, and I was looking up dates. And one I had found the night before, that Tuesday night, I had found the date for when you first gave me that word about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And God had told me when I was trying to figure it out, it's like you wrote it, go look in your journal. So I pulled out one of my journals, one of my electronic journals, and I found that I had recorded that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started thinking and wondering about the next morning. God is talking to me more and more and more, pouring out about the yod. And then that's when I saw some information that explained what you told me on that May 6th date when you told me to connect the dots from, because you had given me just a couple of little things about the sermon that the preacher had said.
Yeah.
Well, it corresponds to some things about the yod. Because you mentioned that the preacher said something about staying in a certain place so that the power can come out, pour out, like being connected to a kind of a power grid thing. You remember that?
Yeah.
But we didn't really understand it. We were still both like, what? Scratching our heads.
Right.
Okay. It describes the yod. When I look back at what God had told me to research it, when I went back and looked again, it was describing that. And that the yod, that dot, is concentrated power. And that the way it pours out onto the earth is like a chute. I know.
What?
That descends into, I was like, oh my goodness, right? So I'm just like, oh my gosh. So then somehow I started thinking about, I started looking, I was like, when was that day when I first did the crystal, the singing bowls, and I knew about that and the night bloom thing, and because it was the same day, and I remember just how unusual it was. It was one of those days when it's meant to be, where you see something at just the right time, and then something else, and just everything has that kind of feeling to it, like it's signs and wonders. It felt like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me go and look at that. Let me go and look and see what that date was. Girl,
Yeah.
It was her birthday.
Wow.
It was January 19th, 2019. I was like, oh, there's that 1919 again. Oh my gosh. That I got both of those on the same day, and that it was her birthday. Now, this is the other thing. There was an eclipse 2 days later.
Shut up, girl.
It was eclipse season.
Wow.
So that's why because I didn't even want to text you all that. I wanted to tell you that live. I was just like, that's why I was like, I got to tell you something about, your mom's birthday, blah, blah, blah. And then when you called me, you tell me this before I even get to tell you this part.
Wow.
You dreamed it. That's God.
Gotta be God.
I'm over the moon because I had told Byron, I was like, I really feel like on this overview piece, I just really hear the singing bowls. I just think that's really important. And the Koshi chimes, that's the first time I heard those. And the bowl, I just really feel like that's really important for the sound design of this piece. And then when you called and shared the dream, I was like, there it is. So, yeah, so I'm just, it's just like taking it all in, but it's more dot connecting. And when I interviewed Byron's mother yesterday, like right before we started, that interview, and we were just, chatting and stuff first, and Byron came up for something he was asking her to do related to the business, but then I shared the dream because you had just told me. I had just gotten off the phone, when I was going to meet with her. So I told them the dream. So this is really really interesting as this continues to really unfold. And when I talked to her, we had, of course we always have like a cool conversation, interesting conversation.
Like
what?
She's seen you making this walk.
I think so too. You think she saw it though when she was still here?
I think she saw it when she was still here.
And that's why she used to look at me the way she looked at me?
Mm-hmm.
You're probably right, because she did have sight.
She definitely had sight. Girl, I mean, when she was on.
Because she really adored me, and it didn't completely make sense to me at the time.
She did. She really did.
She was really, 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 really sweet to me.
Yeah.
Very
she
encouraging.
Really adored you. She really was encouraging and everything. And it was weird because she wasn't really like that.
It was a little unusual. Like, I remember not really understanding why she was as sweet as she was to me. Not like she wasn't.
She's seen this walk before you had it.
She knew.
Yeah, because she had made it. Yep.
What you remember what the date was? Her heavenly birth date?
Her what?
Her heavenly birth date.
I want to say it was November 19th, but I'll check for sure.
Yeah, check, because I remember my dad, it was during the same time when my dad had died. Because that's why
I know we was there for Thanksgiving for her funeral.
Okay. Yeah, because I
got a call one of the other. I know Doris definitely know that date.
Yeah, ask because I remember the time, and I remember because I was trying to stay because it was happening during the time when I was down there for my father's service.
The weirdest thing.
What?
Well, it wasn't weird, but when she was in that coma, and I think I told you before she left here, I walked in that room and she was non-responsive to anybody, and I laid my head on her pillow, and I told her to open her eyes and look at me. I said, I'm the prettiest child you ever had. Now, come on, let's just be honest. And I just laid there. I said, look at me. I want you to look at me. And she wasn't responding. She was, basically brain dead, is what they was telling us. And I stood there. I laid there, and then when I stood, I put my head up and stood there, and she looked at me. And she followed me around the room with her eyes to let me know she knew. I was there. And everybody, they didn't want the kids to go in there and see her like that, but I took my kids in there to see her, and she looked at them. She just followed them around the room with her eyes, just looking at them.
Wow.
And I just know it was God just giving her that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I was talking to Tati this morning, and she said, Mama, she said, you know, God told me that we wasn't going to have Grandma very long.
She said that to you this morning?
Yeah, she was just telling me this morning. She said, you know, he told me. And I told Portia then that she wasn't going to see us grow up and everything. And she had the conversation with me. And she poured everything she could into them. That's why she just told me that today. That's why she taught them how to cook, how to do all of these skills. That I didn't teach them that. She did.
So are you saying that Tati had the conversation with her, that she told her what God told her?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So she was just telling me that, you know, she taught them how to cook, and she just poured everything she could into them because she knew she wasn't going to be here through this time. So sometimes they'll pull out stuff, and I don't know, I didn't. Like, it's because I got it from her, but I know that I didn't tell them that. I was working, so I really just didn't have time. Really didn't have time to do it. So